You are listening to Theoretical Insights of D&D.
Lord, give me a fireball!
Screw how hot your skin is. My bars are hotter. Let me tell you what this is. Let me tell you, you listeners, if you don't know what the zombie has packing in his decaying flesh. You shut up, Cancer Bones. You gonna be a zombie if that cancer doesn't get cured.
Hey guys, I'm Rob.
And I'm Eric.
Welcome back to another episode of Theoretical Insights of D&D. And today we are joined once again by our long-distance friends, our good friends, actually, our first set of friends, Potato Candy Network, Casey and Marie.
That sounds so sad.
That's the sweetest and saddest intro ever.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. We have recorded with a total of 2 people outside of you and one other person, and you are the only ones to come back. So I think that says a lot.
Either we're that stubborn or that desperate.
One of the two.
I mean,
One of the two.
let's be honest here.
It's always a joy, though.
Can't get rid of us.
Today we are covering our top monsters / creatures for CR 15. And I thought, you know what? Screw it. Let's have Potato Candy make the list because they'll probably be better at it than us anyway. So
Less work for us today.
So they have come with a monster list. It's pretty much going to be a top 10. And whether we agree or not to where it can be a collaborative effort, we're going to agree. We can argue about the statistics later.
Don't make me turn this podcast around. We're going to agree.
Do you know how many monsters there are on the CR 15 list that are dragons? So many.
Yeah.
That's what we've been running into for the past 4. Like we've been choosing one dragon and being like, okay, this one's cooler than the rest.
Yeah, it's hard not to
New
choose
one.
just one.
But as per usual, we are coming to you once again with a new and improved celebrity list.
You really think that's going to stick one day, don't you?
Yeah, I'm hoping so. It's the only thing I've got, dude. It's
Hey,
that and Lord,
at
give me a
least
fireball.
You can blame Casey this time.
Yeah, we can blame Casey if we get
What
canceled.
did I do? Besides
You helped me
create a
build the
I guess.
list. Yeah, you guys are crossing over into the controversial side now.
Oh, I didn't realize there was that much controversy in theoretical insights of whatever this is now.
Like
The ones of many comments.
We have been very careful as to who we put on the bottom of the list because that's supposed to be the lowest. But either way, screw Ezra Miller because he's our number 1 this week.
Yeah.
Is it? In hindsight, we've had the Third Reich at number 1 in the past, and then there's Ezra Miller.
Here's the question though: where's the Spanish Inquisition fall on this list?
Can you prove to me that Ezra Miller is not the Third Reich? Have we seen them in the same room at the same time?
I mean, you're not wrong. And as far as the Spanish Inquisition goes, that can pop up at any time because nobody expects it.
Nobody expects it.
Mm-hmm.
Our number 2 and forever cemented in the number 2 position, Amber Heard, because she took a number 2 on the bed.
Heard that.
At number 3, we've got Jared Leto, if for nothing more than Morbius.
Mm-hmm.
Absolute catastrophe.
Ugh.
And eventually Madam Web's going to make it onto the list too.
Yeah.
Yep.
Eventually.
Yeah.
The next top 10 list is top 10 bad films.
I want to try to watch it before I put it on the list.
I'm going to wait till the library gets and I can borrow the DVD so it's not in my film history.
We have officially discovered who in Theoretical Insights is the masochist.
I was like, I'll give it a chance for at least
Present.
the first 20 minutes just to make sure.
At number 4, we have Simon Cowell. Likeable by some, Casey,
Yeah.
and detested by most.
Yes.
It's always a question of, do you want to stay in the room with the people that are on the list? That's the question.
There are 4 on this list that I would stay in a room with. Well, technically 3 because there's an inappropriate joke coming, but I don't want to be 6 feet under. So
Okay. No.
At number 5, we had David Dashmalchian. That's Malshin.
David.
We have David.
With such confidence. That's mouse.
To those listening at home, we
mean,
made this
it's-
right before we recorded. We're like, how do we say this name? Are we going to
Look.
say it correctly? No, we did not.
Sunday school prepared me for a lot, but it didn't prepare me for
Yeah.
that travesty.
We didn't learn names in Sunday school.
You just skip over the syllables.
If you don't know how
You
to say
skip to
it,
David.
you just say it loudly and quickly and move on. Damash.
I mean, I'll be honest. The only thing I remember from Sunday school is Shadrach, Meshach, and a billy goat. So I don't know where I went wrong.
That sounds right. That's the VeggieTale version, right?
Yes. At number 6, we have Kiefer Sutherland. I will, however, say his roles in 24 and Designated Survivor could have earned him a higher placing because those are absolutely, like, he's a great actor. He really is.
He's above a 5.
Yeah.
And
But
then at
compared
number,
to,
go ahead.
but I was just about to say he is above a 5, but compared to what's about to come,
Yeah. Because up next is his dad, Donald Sutherland.
Mm-hmm.
And he just commands your attention while he's on the screen.
that he does.
At number 8, we have the other mustache of Hollywood, Tom Selleck,
Yep.
bringing us greats like Quigley Down Under, Blue Bloods,
Yeah, Blue Bloods is a good show.
Magnum PI, and what was the movie that he made with Sam Elliott? We talked about it last night.
Oh, last night was such a
I
long
feel like it
time
was a
ago.
Western, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a Western.
You know, I just realized we should have put Ted Danson on this list. And I realized that because of 3 Men and a Little Baby.
Oh,
The other
yes.
Tom Selleck. Oh, well.
Shadow Riders.
Shadow Riders, yes. At number 9, we have the late and great Alan Rickman. It's hard to believe it's already been 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Oh, my word.
been
Yeah.
8 years.
I mean, if you think, were you guys fans of the Fast and Furious franchise from when it first started?
I was.
It's been 10 or 11 since Paul Walker.
Oh, wow.
It is
Yeah.
right, isn't it?
It's been over a decade.
Because the
It's
last
crazy.
one was, the last one he was in, I think, was 6.
Yes.
Because then they tried to do a whole new trilogy without him.
Yeah, because he was in 6 and then he died like a quarter of the way through 7.
Yeah. Because it was the promo for 6 that he died during. They were doing the car demonstration. Man, I was still in college when that happened.
I had just graduated high school.
Wait, I'm older than you?
Not by much, I don't think.
That's another name that should have ended up on the list. Bob Saget. Oh, well.
Wait, Bob Saget's been on the celebrity list, I think.
Yeah,
I think
If I'm not
he was
mistaken,
good for it.
if I'm not mistaken, I think we put him at the number 10.
possibly.
Well, not
I don't
today.
remember. But our number 10 returning to the number 10 position. Why? Because he is that guy. We have Denzel Washington. One
Applause
of the
for Denzel.
most respected actors in Hollywood, can play just about any role he wants, except according to Casey, the Equalizer. He's not a hand-to-hand combatant, Green Beret bad guy.
He pulled it off in Man on Fire, but just there's something about that role that never sat with me as like it's a Denzel role. But Man on Fire was good.
I think they probably messed up somewhere in the writing because the character is good.
Yeah.
And him being a deadly force of, humanity, I can see Denzel doing that because he can get that look in his eye.
Mm-hmm.
But
ironically, Denzel is what made the only good Mark Wahlberg film.
hey, wait
Listen
a minute now.
here. Marky Mark makes some good movies.
I will
Name
say
it.
I don't necessarily like his comedy stuff. However, and you have to take these with a grain of salt because they're trying to move the time plot and timelines forward. But Deepwater Horizon, Patriots Day, the True Stories, those are worth watching. I think he does a great job in those. The other stuff is, I think he's a good actor, but I think it's more along the lines of like, he's had some bad scripts, dude.
He has, but
You can't tell me
accepts
Ted is
those
not a
bad
good
scripts.
Ted. Ted is a real life
sometimes.
Family Guy. Okay.
Yes. Shooter, one of the best.
Fair.
You're entertained by paint drying on a wall, Eric. What are you talking about?
I mean, if it's the right color.
We're not going to go down that track. That's going to go bad so fast.
It could be construed as bad, yes, but I'm just saying, if it's a terrible color for a wall, like someone I know that, yeah, she painted the wrong color on the wall, and it's terrible.
Well, moving on from that story, I guess.
Yeah.
It's just a bad color for a wall.
Hey, do you guys know those vehicles that people ride around on with two wheels? It's called a Segway. So, anyways, into the news.
Yeah. I was thinking motorcycle, but I mean,
That's what it
is. Because we didn't talk about it beforehand, and I'm leaving this in, I'm not ashamed. How do you guys want to do the monster list? You want to take turns? Because I have a certain like format to go with, but it's quick and boring. So
I mean, we can take turns. I have 10 on the list to go through, so that's 2 each plus 2 for whoever gets it. So,
well, Eric can't read, so we can split it between the three of us.
okay, sweet.
I mean, he's not.
3 for you, 3 for me, 4 for Casey. Got it.
Just don't start with me.
Here, I'll start us off because this is one of my favorite ones on this list. So, kicking off our CR15 list. It's 50, yeah, 15. Make sure I have the right number going. Be bad if I sent you this whole list of like CR18 or something like that. It's like, I mean, skip ahead.
And at that point, you could just join Theoretical Insights of D&D.
Pretty much. Yep. So first one we're going over is the dragon. There were, I think, 6 different dragons on this list for the adult class. So I chose the adult Moonstone dragon to cover because for those of you who've heard me on the show before, I like the Feywild, and this is a Feywild dragon. So that's basically all
It's her Denzel.
All the reason. Yep. So adult Moonstone dragon, it is a large dragon. It's a typically neutral, so it's not an evil one. 19 armor class, 195 health, 40-foot speed with a fly speed of 80 feet, 20 strength, dexterity 18, constitution 20, intelligence 22, wisdom 20, charisma 23.
Somebody's trying too hard.
Now.
It's a dragon.
Yeah.
I mean, come on now.
It's got stealth plus 9, perception plus 10, persuasion plus 11. It can't be charmed. It has blind sight 60 feet and dark vision of 20 feet. Passive perception 20. And it speaks Common, Draconic, Elvish, Gnomish, and Sylvan. Oh yeah, and
but realistically, would you want to talk to this?
I mean, this is a Feywild dragon, so. So if you get in a fight with this thing, you're going to have a lot of lucky dice rolls, to be honest.
So what is it that makes this thing so fancy for the Feywild specifically is my question. Because the Feywild always has to have something.
Oh, so the actions for this thing.
Yes, that would be the question that I was asking. It
has multi-attack, of course. It can do a bite and a claw attack, both with a plus 10 to hit. And it has a tail attack with plus 10 to hit.
Ooh.
Has a breath weapon. This is a fun one. Has a dream breath. It exhales mist in a 90-foot cone. Each creature must just succeed on a DC 18 Constitution saving throw or fall unconscious for 10 minutes.
So they call it dream breath. What they're really saying is it's morning breath.
I mean, pretty much.
Practically.
So, and these things recharge in 5 or 6. So you've got a 1 in 3 chance of these recharging. So breathes on you and you fall asleep for 10 minutes.
Or pass out.
Yeah, that's the kicker, though, is that if you fail a DC 18 Constitution saving throw, you fall unconscious for 10 minutes. That's 100 rounds of combat. If it doesn't touch you again, it just does whatever it wants.
Yeah, unless someone walks over and kicks you, you're not waking up.
Oh, so it's Bill Cosby.
Oh, no.
I want to say jokes that don't age well, but I mean, that whole situation didn't.
Oh, man.
Some jokes age like fine wine. Some age like milk.
Yes.
Moving back to the dragon. Excuse me. Hit the mic. It also has a second breath weapon, Moonlight Breath. So it exhales a beam of moonlight in a 90-foot line that's 10 feet wide. Each creature makes a DC 18 dexterity saving throw or takes 49 radiant damage on a failed save.
It breathes moonlight.
Yep. This is basically a radiant laser beam.
Well, here's
Yeah.
I'm firing my laser.
wait.
That's what this is.
It's a freaking dragon with a laser beam. Evil. Now all I see is a moonstone dragon talking like Dr. Evil.
I mean, it's a Feywild. I can see it.
Let
me
out
here Yeah, for it is Feywild.
$1 million.
Here's the crazy thing that makes that so dangerous, though, because if it turns out and it plays out how a evil DM, aka me, would want it to, is that you use the breath weapon and say there's 5 adventurers, 4 of them fall unconscious, so you know that they're not going to have the time to be able to get everybody woken up.
Mm-hmm.
You roll your recharge on the next round because 4 of them are unconscious. 3 of them are unconscious because 1 has been woken up. Then you hit that 90-foot line that's 10 feet wide. Those that are still unconscious are incapable of making the dexterity saving throw, so they take the full of the 9d10.
Yep.
It's
so
a
you're looking at
guaranteed
90
damage. Yeah.
Which will wipe out most spellcasters.
Well, I mean, the average is 49, and that's right at half of, say, a 10th level fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot of damage. And it's a really good setup to where it's guaranteed.
Yep. Yeah, that's what made this one so cool, is the breath weapons. Because normally it's like it breathes fire, it breathes acid. No, it knocks you unconscious, and then radiant damage, which most people aren't resistant to. So maybe the cleric might get away with something, but most people can't block radiant damage.
Yeah.
Well, the only one that could that I know of would be if you were playing a variant Asimir as a race. And if you weren't, you'd have to be a Path of the Totem barbarian because you get resistant to everything except psychic.
Gotcha.
But the problem, it's just one of those deals to where the dude comes up and goes, 2 turns later, pew!
Yep. And it's got magic still, because of course it needs magic. Spell save DC of 19. So at will it can cast Fairy Fire. And then once a day it can do Calm Emotions, Invisible, and Revivify. So this is technically not supposed to be a dragon that you can fight. But if you get in a fight with it, it's not going to end well.
No. Not in the least.
I mean, it is the Feywild. It could be either your friend or your enemy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, since neutral alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And even the legendary actions are basically you do another tail attack or you can cast a spell. So legendary actions aren't super impressive, but I mean, being able to pop invisible for a large dragon.
Yeah, that would be most useful to it, I think, other than Calm Emotions and Revivify. If it was an enemy, like invisibility would come in clutch. But Revivify, it would only really help if, let's see, what is it? Touch a creature that's died in the last minute. Revivify could work as a legendary action if
it had minions, maybe.
If it had a minion, or if there was a young dragon there too, Revivify on that, and then the young dragon be able to fly off before anybody else takes their turn.
Yep.
Well, that's very situational.
Yep. And there is one last cool thing with this, because this is an adult dragon, it has a lair. It likes to find places that are kissed by the moon, lonely peaks, forest clearings, and placid lakes. I'm not going to read all of it because there's a lot of things, but basically it can communicate with people in its dreams. It can travel through plains in this area. And it can compel people to dance.
Are we sure this is a level 10 item?
This is a 15.
No, I'm saying like we're putting this at top tier of the 15. Are we sure about that?
No, I don't know.
For me, this is an 8.
I was about to say, because
an 8.
We just talked about an adult solar dragon.
Oh, that one was awesome.
The solar dragons are ridiculous. They really are, because even their layers are stupid. If you get within 10 miles of the star, you go blind if you don't have goggles of night. If you start your turn within the star, it's 24d10 radiant damage.
Yeah.
And it doesn't launch a line. It launches a literal
seed.
little mustard seed that explodes into a 30-foot sphere of, like, what was it? 12d10 radiant damage.
Oh, it was something. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, the solar dragon is just
How is
possibly
that
the
not a
coolest
higher
dragon.
challenge rating than this guy?
It's probably got something to do with the fact that this has 2 different breath weapons.
True.
That's the only thing I could think of, because pretty much it's got everything else that the solar dragon would have, except the solar dragon is immune to radiant damage.
Controversial opinion. Based upon what you're saying, this should be at a 6.
I don't know if it belongs that low. Because the thing is, it's still a dragon, and it's one of the named dragons, so where it's not like the Jabberwock.
True, but look at what items we have coming up on our potential list. And I argue, based upon our comment about Kiefer Sutherland is solid, but not as good as Donald Sutherland.
Yeah, I can go with that.
Yeah.
But keep in mind, I'm completely unashamed to put 3 or 4 in the exact same spot. We had like a whole list of 10s last night.
Yeah, I think it was like
stupid.
95% 10s.
We're eventually
Everybody
going to
got a
have
mustache.
Eventually, we're going to have to go to a 1 through 5 because there's just too many good ones.
How is this list new and improved if we keep putting all of them at the same spot?
See, that's the problem.
The
somebody gets
names are arbitrary.
That's you finally understand.
Somebody gets it, Rob.
It's theoretical, not realistic.
We will try.
Yeah, that is the adult Moonstone Dragon, which I think is from the new Treasury Dragons. That's why it popped up on there. But anything Feywild, I'm like, oh, it's on the list immediately.
Yeah, it's from Fizbin's.
It's your Roman Empire.
Pretty much.
The Feywild.
Yep.
Marie thinks about the Feywild every day. Sometimes multiple times a day.
Casey, do you want to take the next one?
We're talking the Death Giant Shrouded?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
It's a good thing I just looked that one up. All right, so up next we have the Death Giant Shrouded one with an armor class of 12, 195 hit points, and a speed of 40 feet. Do you want me to go through the attributes as well, or?
That's up to you. You can do it however you want.
Well, the only notable ones that I'm noticing on him is his strength, which is at a 27, so a +8 on strength, with a wisdom of 16, so +3 on wisdom and +3 on charisma as well. But this guy has an 11 arcana as well as a 7 stealth. Good night. I didn't even notice that one. He's immune to necrotic and immune to frightened, has 120 feet of dark vision. But the fun thing with this guy is his death rune. He walks around with a skull at all times that bears a rune etched into the forehead. And while he's holding or wearing it, he gets to do 2 of his little special abilities as a bonus action. Now, keen players might consider destroying the skull, but the problem is the skull has 35 hit points, which is not much, but an AC of 18 to hit, and is immune to necrotic, poison, and psychic damage, so that bard can't just vicious mock the skull into oblivion.
I mean, you can try.
And unless it reaches 0 hit points on the next turn, it completely regains all of its hit points, all the way back up to full. But if it's destroyed, the giant can get a new death rune on another skull in its possession as soon as he gets a short or long rest. So he's not completely out of the count if he loses his one. He has a stereotypical multi-attack. The Soul Burst is pretty awesome. It's a +11 to hit, range of 10 feet or 120 feet. Reach of 10 feet, range of 120 feet. My apologies. It has a hit of 28, and it's all necrotic damage. And if the target is frightened, he gains temporary hit points equal to the damage dealt.
Ooh.
So he solidly just keeps boosting his health back up.
That's really good. Like, really good.
Yeah. And then, and this is just actions. We haven't made it to the bonus action yet. The Reaping Scythe is plus 11 to hit. And it's one creature. It's 38 damage. It's necrotic damage. And the target can't regain hit points until the end of its next turn. And it dies if it's reduced to 0.
Yeah, that one's brutal.
I'm noticing a lot of things up here that once you hit 0, you just plain out die.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Well, this guy, I mean, with him being all necrotic.
Yeah.
If you think when we started this the whole spiel about the monster list, if you look back at like CRs 3 through probably 8, you see necrotic damage starting to come in. Not many things were doing it, but necrotic damage was treated as something like, hey, this is a damage type that you probably haven't seen as a character or whatever if you're lower level, and you might want to watch out for it. When it gets up into the CR probably 13 and higher range, it's avoided at all costs because it will instantly kill you.
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's the point. You're getting closer to epic level games.
Yes.
Yep.
And even at that, it's kind of like Rust monsters. At a certain point, the heroes become powerful enough. You have to throw something that's going to force them to strategize.
Mhm.
You can't just throw your characters into battle with something that does necrotic damage. You've got to be smart about it. He does have spell casting, which is detect magic and mage armor. 3 times a day, he can do Speak with Dead and Tincture's floating disc, which sounds fun.
Allows you to move.
And then he's got Frightening Teleport, which recharges on a 4 to 6. He magically teleports along with any equipment he's wearing or carrying up to 40 feet in an unoccupied space that he can see. Any creature that is within 10 feet of him, of the location that he left, has to succeed on a DC 19 Wisdom saving throw or have the Frightened condition until the end of that creature's next turn. So it's just that terrifying of he poofs.
This guy, okay, that's a bonus action.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
It's a bonus action with a recharge, to be fair.
This
but a
is
bonus
why
action.
the skull is so critical for him, because if he loses that rune skull, he loses this ability. So like if you can get rid of it, great. If not,
No, he doesn't lose that ability. Frightening Teleport he gets. He loses Reaping Sides and he loses Shroud of
right.
Souls.
Never mind. He just pops around the battlefield.
Yeah.
But honestly, the skull is not going to be that hard to get rid of. It's only got 35 hit points.
But
Yeah, I
it
was about to say-
recharges every single round.
Yeah.
yeah, it would be one of those deals to where you would really, obviously, you don't want to metagame at the expense of your DM because that's just not cool. But if you were able to figure something out in game to where you're like, oh, this guy's got extra abilities thanks to this stone that's in his head. I, as a bard, have access to the spell called Shatter.
Yep.
So if we can't hit it because we're rolling bad, I'll just cast Shatter, and that should probably just straight up destroy the thing.
This is where, as a DM, I would say he's going to keep reusing that teleport. Just you'd have to do the recharge, but use whatever damage you can up close and then just pop away. Anytime somebody gets nearby you, bonus action, you're teleporting out, and then they're frightened and they don't want to be nearby you.
Well,
see-
he's got melee and ranged spells, so he can just jump back around
Yep.
wherever he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, let's paint a picture too, because we're talking theoretical. The rogue had snuck up because he was too stupid to bring a short bow, and he stabs him in his left shin, and the giant turns around and he looks at him, and so he bonus action disengages and runs away, and he turns around and flips him off, saying "Ha." And then he bonus actions Frightening Teleports right beside him, smiles and says "surprise" and hits him with a Reaping Scythe.
Yeah. Well, the Frighten only works for where he left, not where he ends up. But all the same, you're still dealing with that.
You're leaving Barbarian to try to deal with that, though, potentially, because Barbarian's going to be right up on him. The Barbarian fails that save. He ain't going to be able to help out the rogue anytime soon.
The giant also does have a solid intelligence. He is +6 on intelligence.
Yeah.
The other dangerous thing is if the only frontliners you have, if you don't have a Barbarian, but you instead have like a War Domain Cleric or a Paladin or Fighter, because they all have their own innate self-healing, if you get hit by the Reaping Scythe, they can't regain hit points until the end of its next turn, and that does not say that it can't be used multiple turns in a row. So the giant could just sit there and completely shut down the healing on one or two characters.
Yep, because it can hit multiple. Can only hit the one.
Yep.
That's crazy.
And last but not least, Shroud of Souls. This one does require the death rune. So if the death rune gets taken, this is gone. He shrouds itself in a torrent of souls, and while it's shrouded, each that starts within 5 feet of the giant has to succeed on a DC 19 Wisdom saving throw, or have disadvantage on its saving throws until the end of that creature's next turn. Shroud disappears after a minute when the giant dies, when the giant uses this bonus action again, or when the giant's death rune is destroyed.
See, that's going to be the brutal one for your melee combatants.
Yes.
Because that activates and you're disadvantaged. And if you're trying to beat 18-19s with disadvantage, you aren't going to.
That makes the frightening teleport that much more powerful.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not only that, but if you think about it, with depending on what character is up there, if you're trying to beat, what was it? What save was it? The DC 19 Wisdom saving throw.
Mm-hmm.
As a barbarian, you're probably not going to have wisdom to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You may not even have it as a rogue or a sorcerer because it's not, unless you roll really good for your stats. But if you're using point buy or something like that, chances are you're not going to have a high wisdom unless it's one of those statistics to where you need it for your class like you do for the ranger, the monk, or the cleric.
Mm-hmm.
So even the DC 19 wisdom saving throw and then putting that at disadvantage for those that do have proficiency in their wisdom saves, that's a lot.
Yeah. Honestly, for me, this guy is a 9.
I was going to say, this guy is an 8 or 9 for me.
Yeah, I was going to give it a mustache. With Mr. Tom Selleck.
Looking at the picture they've got here, it'd be more terrifying with a mustache.
It would, yes. That big, thick, bushy mustache that Tom Selleck has, yes.
He's shrouded
in a
in a mustache.
I could give it an 8. Easily give it an 8.
Yeah, this is one of those, if the DM plays it smart, it can be a 9. If the DM doesn't play it smart, it leans closer to an 8 or a 7 by the end of the fight.
It could very easily be a big bad or just a problem child on the way to the big bad.
I mean, dropping this into the Storm King's Thunder campaign or another giant campaign.
Well, even if it was just in the Storm King's Thunder campaign, this sets up for a really good mini boss.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Instead of it just being somebody on the way, it's like, okay, well, we've heard the possibilities of this thing called a death giant that's going around. He had something to do with the disappearance of Hecaton, and we need to go and find some information on it. And that's one of the mini bosses that you have to fight on your way to fight Emerith to be able to, free Hecaton and get him back.
Yep.
This could be fun to throw into Ravenloft as well.
That's actually where they're
Absolutely.
from. The lore actually puts them in Ravenloft because they serve their Raven Queen.
Yep.
Have these with Strahd.
Yeah. I mean, you could absolutely do, I know it's meant as a monster, but you could absolutely do a death giant that is just approaching it as this Barovia is a curse and a blight upon the land, and I just got to do what I got to do, which means that for you as players, you absolutely could fight this thing and kill it because it's trying to get in your way, or find a way to convince this thing to help you take down what's creating the blight.
True.
Yeah.
Because, man, getting one of these on your side, it'd be hard. But getting one of these on your side, ooh.
True.
Well, see, that's what adds in so much to a cool factor for a monster is it's giving you RP and storyline stuff that you can use along with the ridiculous stat block that comes with it.
This would work in the I can't remember the name of the place, but it's basically the Frankenstein Hospital in Strahd.
I know what you're talking about, but I can't remember the name of it either.
Yeah. This would work as one of the offshoots that he's holding on to. One of his creations.
Next up, we have the Eldritch Lich. It's a medium undead, AC of 17 with 165 hit points, or you can take the maximum of 22d8 plus 66 for max health of...
See, he's fancy. He does the math.
Well, I try to.
Bro got a tentacle coming out his chest.
Oh, this guy's definitely second favorite on this list. Not gonna lie.
What is it, Eric? Like 222?
I'm working on it. I'm behind.
He's got freaking laser
242.
on the top.
242. Missed it by 20. Dang it. I
What is
went
wrong
on
with you?
I went on a 6-win streak in one of the episodes. Don't start with me.
Yes, but you still missed. That's the you went on a streak, yes, but then you failed.
But you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Exactly.
Technically not. If you don't take the shot, then you don't waste the ammo to miss.
Get out of here with your
Spoken like a
logic.
true Southern boy.
We're not talking logic. We're talking theory here.
Exactly.
This is not logical insights of D&D.
It's a spin-off show.
if it
That'll
was,
be a
it'd
whole
suck.
different show.
It'd be horrible.
Be very short.
Like I made a graph chart for why this is the best.
Why Fireball is the best spell. Here's your graph.
That's a YouTube channel spin-off. Just PowerPoint.
PowerPoint pie charts.
It's got a 30-foot movement speed with a flying speed of 30 feet and a hover. +9 to intelligence saving throws and a +7 to wisdom, +14 to arcana, and a +7 to perception, with resistance to necrotic and poison. It is immune to the charmed, exhaustion, frighten, paralyze, and poison conditions, with true sight of 120 feet and a passive perception of 17. So it's going to be easier to get by this guy compared to the Moonstone Dragon, but you're still going to want to roll at least halfway decent on your
You're
spells.
still screwed.
That true sight's the thing that's going to get you, though.
Yeah.
It speaks common and deep speech with a telepathy of 120 feet. Far Realm Parasite. This is where it gets a little bit weird. Inside the Lich's torso dwells a worm-like parasite that contains the Lich's soul. When the Lich dies, it implodes into the parasite, which then vanishes into the Far Realm. In 2d4 days, the parasite causes the Lich to reappear within 1d4 miles of where it died. If the Lich died inside a magic circle cast to contain undead, the Lich instead reappears as an Otio with all the Lich's memories. And that is a...
That's
see,
a
what's
large
the CR?
aberration. Class,
Yeah,
armor
it's
class 14.
It's a CR5.
Yeah.
Oh, I love these guys.
It's got 4 uses a day of legendary resistance. And thanks to its unusual nature and the fact that it's a Lich, it doesn't require air, food, drink, or sleep. Although I have a feeling he still enjoys a nice glass of wine.
Possibly.
With his multi-attack, he makes 1 parasitic tentacle attack or uses his spell casting. The Lich can also use Psychic Whisper twice. If y'all want to comment on anything, you can stop me at any point.
See,
you're good.
My favorite thing with this guy was you really can't kill him. He just disappears and comes back mad.
Yeah, because it doesn't say anything about having a phylactery like a regular Lich. So technically, this guy can never actually die until he comes back as an Otio if you've done the correct thing to make the magic circle.
Yep. But
And then
even
he can
those
be
things
killed.
are still nasty, and it has all the memories of the Lich, so it's still going to be able to hunt you down.
It's his final
yeah.
form, though. If you can kill
This
the
is one of
Odio,
those
then it's
just
gone.
in
Yeah.
prison.
Like, welcome to round 2. I've lost a lot of power.
Yeah, but you may not see it coming if your party doesn't know about the lore, though.
Yep.
That is true.
The Parasitic Tentacle is a melee attack +9 to hit, 10-foot reach, 6d6 plus 4 piercing damage, plus 6d6 plus 4 necrotic damage. Oh, wow. The target must succeed on a DC 17 Constitution saving throw or be poisoned. The
'Cause
poison
that's the
target...
problem.
Yeah. The poison target can repeat the save at the end of each of its turns, ending it on a success. The third time the target fails to save, the target dies and dissolves into a gibbering mouther that obeys the Lich and uses the target's initiative.
I desperately want to use this in a campaign just so I can turn someone into a gibbering mouther, because that is my favorite eldritch monster in this game. It is so creepy. It's fantastic.
I mean, you could straight up just target somebody that you know has a weak constitution and be like, I need this to happen in my life.
Mhm.
I need a gibbering mouther.
Like, who rolled really poorly on Constitution? Okay, great.
Psychic Whisper. The Lich targets 1 creature it can see within 120 feet of itself. The target must succeed on a DC 17 Wisdom saving throw or take 6d6 plus 4 psychic damage and be stunned until the end of the Lich's next turn, as incomprehensible whispers fill the target's mind. I don't want that to happen to me.
I also love it can do it twice, which is brutal. Because doing it once is bad enough. Doing it twice, you can most average D&D party, you're not going to have to party right there for the next turn.
Well, not only that, but if you
Multi-attack.
think, yeah, it's multi-attack. Number two, if it's got any kind of, like, Liches pretty much for the most part is going to need some form of minions or thralls.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get a fighter, specifically with this one, if you get a fighter or a barbarian or even a paladin up close to it, it's not going to last very long.
Mm-hmm.
It just really isn't, because this one doesn't specifically have any form that I'm seeing outside of Dimension Door, which I'll talk about in a second, of getting away outside of Far Realm Step.
No, I think that's because of the nature of the lack of phylactery, though.
Yeah. Yeah, that actually makes sense. So you don't really, like, if they don't know anything about a Eldritch Lich, then they can just, this dude comes back and hunts them down all over again.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And on the fifth try, they were like, wait a minute, let me draw this circle in the sand. The spell casting, speaking of that, has a spell save DC of 17. And at will, it can cast Detect Magic, Mage Hand, and Prestidigitation 2 times per day each, Dispel Magic, Hunger of Hadar, and Lightning Bolt, and 1 time a day each, Arcane Eye, Dimension Door, and Plane Shift on itself only. And I'll be honest, possibly one of the deadliest spells on that is Hunger of Hadar.
Mm-hmm.
It completely locks down, what is it, a 20-foot radius?
20-foot radius, yeah.
And it goes Magical Darkness, dealing 2d6 acid damage and then 2d6 cold damage if you begin your turn there. If I'm not mistaken.
2d6 cold damage. Any creature that ends their turn must also succeed on a dexterity or take 2d6 acid.
Yeah, and it's considered difficult terrain. That's possibly the most dangerous spell on there, just because it makes it into where you can't see, you can't get around. Well, you might have to take a couple turns to get around it.
Yeah.
If you're trapped in the middle of it, then you're going to take the damage no matter what. And it's difficult terrain.
Mm-hmm.
And then the Far Realm Step, as a reaction, immediately after taking damage, the Lich, along with any equipment it is wearing or carrying, magically teleports up to 60 feet to an unoccupied space it can see. And there's no limit.
Mm-hmm.
There's just no limit. Once per round because of reactions, but that's
stupid.
At this point, mobility and damage is kind of key for these monsters, because all of these monsters have had an ability to get out of a tight spot and then get into a better spot afterwards.
Yeah, because the only monsters that came before this one that really comes to mind is the one that I freaked out over, and that would be the Shadow Horror, where it can just step into the shadow of the gnome and appear next to the barbarian as a bonus action.
Yeah, this is the point in combat where you have to strategize with your players. Well, your players have to strategize with each other, because otherwise they will get taken down very quickly if they don't control the battlefield.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's strong. I think it's interesting. But outside of Psychic Whisper, honestly, because the damage is great, I don't find it to be overtly cool.
It's just it's another tentacle monster to me.
Yeah,
I would try to argue at least up to a 7.
I don't know about a 7.
I could see this thing with Donald Sutherland's face. Okay,
That's an insult
no,
to Mr. Sutherland.
No, it's not. It is very commanding. It has a very commanding presence.
Is it
like
better
Mr. Sutherland
than a Moonstone Dragon?
Mm.
Ooh,
No.
Moonstone Dragon is better.
Yeah, the Moonstone
So then
Dragon is better than this by far.
Is this our David?
Yes, this is our David Dalmatian.
Yeah.
I'll argue for 6, but that's just me. I did make the list as well, so to be fair, all these are my favorite.
I still want to give it a Sutherland.
Well, I mean, there's one on here that I'm going to argue over as to why it should possibly be at least a 7. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to put it at a 5, but I'll give it an honorary 6 if the DM can figure out how to really capitalize on everything it's doing. Because outside of that, it's just not. It's interesting, but it's not overly cool.
It mixes up the classic monster trope at least.
Yeah,
It does, but it mixes up in a very tropey way by adding tentacles.
It takes two tropes and smashes them together.
To me, I'll go opposite of Rob and still say there's only one interesting thing, and I don't think it's the psychic whispers. I think it's the parasite. That would be what you would end up having to play up somehow.
Yeah,
and
Have
even
an
at
NPC
that,
fail.
even at that, you're still talking about he has to die to be interesting.
I mean, your poor little NPC, but it gets turned into a gibbering mouther. That's pretty traumatic.
Eh.
not if you didn't like them.
I mean, fair.
And that's that's the other piece of it. Like how would you play up the parasitic tentacle if you could? I don't know. I like liches, but liches are one of those that get overused incorrectly more often than not. It's an easy fallback on them. And again, it's another tentacle monster. If they had figured out a way to connect this more like a mind flayer that had gone lich, I'd be down.
Yes, I would. Yeah, actually, I agree with that entirely. If it had been a mind player that somehow became a lich and gave it some psionics, then that would have been awesome.
Yeah,
it should have psionics.
I'm sure that's a monster somewhere down the line, to be honest.
Probably. It very well may be.
If it's not, it will be after this podcast gets released.
Yes. We'll just all four come together and make the mind flayer lich.
Hey, it's theoretical insights. You have to create stuff for that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Casey, can I pass the next one to you while I'm dying from coughing?
The 100-handed
yeah,
one?
because I'm like, let me not die real quick.
I'm fully down for that one. This would honestly... Okay, so I have not looked this over yet, but I'm inclined to say just by looking at it, this might be one of our 10s. This solidly might be one of our 10s, just because of what it is and what it was originally created for. So we have the 100-handed one. It's a huge giant. It is lawful neutral. Armor class of 15, 243 hit points, or 18d12 plus 126 if you want to roll. I don't do quick maths. Math and I are like my ex.
It's going to be close.
We can be in the same room at the same time as long as we're not communicating with each other.
It's going to be close to like 300.
Yeah. Speed of 40 feet. Strength of 26. Dexterity of 15. Constitution of 25. Intelligence of 14. Wisdom of 16. And charisma of 16 as well. So it's pretty average across the board other than that constitution and strength. That's where they're showing out. Saving throws is Constitution of +12 and Wisdom of +8. It has a +8 in Intimidation, a +8 in Perception. As far as immunities, it is immune to Frightened. The senses, it has Dark Vision out to 120 feet and a passive perception of 18, which is not bad, all things considered.
All these monsters have been pretty hard to get past so far.
Yeah. I think this is the highest perception we've had, ironically, though.
No, the Moonstone Dragon was a 20.
Was it?
Yeah.
For passive?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. And proficiency of +5 because reasons. He is reactive. He can take one reaction on every turn in combat.
Well, with 100 hands, I would hope so.
Yeah, and is vigilant. The giant cannot be surprised. So as far as actions, he gets a multi-attack, which is 4 longsword or 2 rock attacks. For the longsword, he has a +13 to hit, the reach of 15 on one target. You hit at 21, which is 3d8 +8 slashing damage. And then for rock, it's a range, so it's the throw, which is +13 to hit, a 60 to 240 feet at one target. You hit on a 4d10 +8 for damage, which is bludgeoning damage. And if the target is a creature, it has to succeed on a 21 DC strength saving throw or be knocked prone. And then for reactions, because he has 100 hands, he has deflect attack. So he adds +5 to his AC against one weapon attack that it would hit, or that would hit it. And then to do so, the giant must see the attacker or be wielding a melee weapon.
So it's just basically blocking any and all attacks coming at you and then throwing rocks at people at a distance.
Not any and all. He blocks one attack.
One attack per turn.
Per turn.
So
at a +5. to his already 15 AC.
Mm-hmm.
It has an unlimited use of the shield spell.
That was the one thing I loved about this guy was that the reactive, like everything else is like, okay, this is kind of standard. Like the reactive though, just every turn, like even with the multi-attack by this point with your players, the fighter's going to do an attack and it's like, I'm going to block that attack because I don't want that to hit. Okay, let me roll another attack and see if I can get it.
But see, the one thing that I kind of wish that they had done differently with them is they did more longsword attacks because it only makes sense if you think about
Yeah.
it.
Mm-hmm.
Because a Hydra, if you cut off a head and then you don't, if a head dies and you don't do enough damage, 2 spawn back in this place. If you're unfortunate and this Hydra has, say, 100 heads, because this is the 100-handed one, then it takes as many bite attacks as it has heads.
Yeah.
And it gets a reaction per head.
I think that's more just to make it easier for the DM to play as, because this is also one entity, not multiple consciousness.
Fair.
I think this is a reimagining of a older version 100-handed one, because I think I could be very wrong, but I think originally the 100-handed ones were created for epic level campaigns, like beyond level 20 campaigns, and they did something like 50 attacks. So this is their attempt to bring it down to a level that it's doable. I'm surprised they brought it down this far to a 15.
Yeah, I was about to say, it's even on the baseline health, it's got 243. It's beating all the adult dragons by a minimum of 30. That's just the health. Now the AC, I will not argue that the AC is garbage.
Yeah.
For a CR 15.
I think that's why the reactive kicks in though, because this guy is going to be a long fight. This is not a strategy fight. This is a war of attrition. Who's going to die first, basically?
I mean, it's fairly obvious in hindsight, but what I've recognized over the time is the larger the creature, usually the lower the AC. Just because they're so big, they're going to be easier. It's hard to not hit them. There's a reason they talk about hitting the broadside of a barn.
Until you get into the dragons, but I guess that goes into dragon hide because some of these ancient dragons have an AC of like 26.
Yeah, and they've got magic defending them as well, usually.
What, honestly, outside of the reactive and the deflected, because the deflect attack with the reactive is broken. Like, just your wizard has however many spell slots that he can cast shield. And that's once per turn. It raises his AC by 5 until the beginning of his next
it only
turn.
works on melee weapons, to be fair.
Yeah. Now, this is every time somebody makes a melee attack at him, he can use his reaction.
Oh, no. I read that wrong. One weapon attack.
One weapon attack from them, but he has to be wielding a melee weapon to deflect it.
So if you get him to lose all of his swords somehow, I guess.
Yeah, if he drops, well,
all
in the
100
picture,
swords.
Yeah, I was about to say, well, in the picture, he's only holding 4. No, I see 6.
He has to have at least 2 free hands for the rock throws.
Let's be real. In the picture, there's not 100 hands.
Yeah.
Did they really want to make the artist draw 100 hands?
Maybe they got stuck in the tree line because they're floating around them.
Yeah. D&D magic.
What I like so much about him, honestly, is the fact that he is so simple.
Yeah.
It's a fight to where it's like, okay, well, we've had a ton of role playing. We've had like 2.5 hours of shopping. Let's have at least one combat before we end the session. And this is the perfect, just easy for a DM to run encounter for, say, 6th, maybe 11th levels for it to be a decent fight.
It's a popcorn level encounter.
Yeah. To where, it's like, all right, well, I don't want it to be deadly, but I want them to actually try for it. And I think if you've got a group of 6th, 10th to 11th level characters, this would be a great encounter for a DM that's like, you know what, let's have an encounter, but I don't want to make it too much.
Yeah, this would be a decent starter encounter if you're wanting to move them into higher level stuff, or even at that. I mean, with the garbage class, that's probably the reason why the hit points are so high. You could still fiddle around with the hit points and make this feel like an epic level encounter.
Yeah. Because, I mean, if you take that max, it was, let's see, it's 144 plus 96. Sorry. Yeah. 144 and 96 is 240. Wow. If I've done my math right, which I probably haven't, that's 326 max health.
I mean, you've got barbarians that are probably doing upwards of 50 damage a hit.
No,
Before they
it's
go multi-class?
342 max.
340. Whew. Yeah, and your melee combats are doing multi-hit attacks as well at
Yeah.
this point. So they can do some
342.
huge damage to this thing and not knock it down in a swing.
Yeah.
I would say this is a 6. It's a solid monster in the right situation, and it's got a cool thing to make your players think, "Oh, what's going on?"
It's a little bit better than a 5 because it does a better job of filling a certain niche than most others might.
I'm more excited by this than the Moonstone.
But the Moonstone Dragon has invisibility.
I'm just
and
saying,
it
like,
makes you fall asleep because it ate onions.
this is going to be the
It's got
one
a laser
episode
beam.
that I push for making sure we have like one at every level. At this point, I'm comfortable with saying this is better than Kiefer Sutherland.
Ooh.
I'm comfortable with saying that. I think this is our Donald.
I could give it a Donald only because they made a Pokemon out of this.
Well, and
Yeah.
based upon the photo and the argument you made earlier, Eric, I could see him with the mustache.
Oh,
Mhm.
yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
sneaky 7.
Yeah, I can give it a 7. Could I do the Mummy Lord because I have arguments for the Mummy Lord?
Oh no! Oh no!
Oh,
Here,
no.
okay.
Here we go.
Before you start, I adore the Mummy Lord. There's a reason I included it on my blank monster list because it has so much story potential. It is a very broken character at times, but it's such a great character.
Hey, Eric,
Okay,
this
go.
is going to be fun to just, we're just going to be here for like the next
Yeah.
10 minutes.
I'm gonna
We're
make
going to sit here and think while he lays down his arguments, and then we're just going to light them on fire.
That's the goal. We're going
We're
to
gonna
unwrap
try.
his arguments like a mummy.
Yes.
Wow.
go
And
for
it
it.
starts.
Mummy Lord. It's a medium undead with an AC of 17, but its max health is only 97. But you can take the maximum of 13d8 plus 39 for a max health of 133 with a movement speed of 20. It's got a +8 to con and charisma saves, a +5 to intelligence, and a +9 to wisdom, +5 to history, and +5 to religion. Vulnerable to fire, but immune to necrotic, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, while being immune to charmed, exhaustion, frightened, paralyzed, and poisoned. Has dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 14. It's a mummy. It's not going to have a good perception. And it knows all the languages it knew in life, so have fun with that. So, this thing is technically a CR15, but encountered in a layer, it's a CR16. But I think that's something worth touching on for a little bit.
Mhm.
This mummy has magic resistance and rejuvenation and spell casting. It's a 10th level spellcaster, and it has arguably the most powerful spell list in the game. Well, it has spells from arguably the most powerful spell list in the game. It's pulling spells from the cleric list.
Yeah.
So the cantrips at will are Sacred Flame and Thaumaturgy. First level, Command, Guiding Bolt, and Shield of Faith. Second, Hold Person, Silence, and Spiritual Weapon.
Oh, it's a
Third,
good
Spiritual Weapon is great.
one.
Third level, Animate Dead and Dispel Magic. Fourth, Divination, Guardian of Faith. Fifth, Contagion, Insect Plague. And sixth, one of my favorite cleric spells, Harm. It also has multi-attack, where it uses its dreadful glare and makes one Rotting Fist attack. Now, hang on to your butts. Rotting Fist is a +9 to hit with a 5-foot reach, 3d6 plus 4 bludgeoning damage, plus 6d6 necrotic damage. And if it's a creature, it hits, it's got to succeed on a DC 16 Constitution saving throw or be cursed with mummy rot. The cursed target can't regain hit points, and its hit point maximum decreases by 3d6 for every 24 hours that elapse. If the curse reduces the target's hit point maximum to 0, the target dies and the body turns to dust. The curse lasts until removed by the remove curse spell or other magic.
Yeah, and at this point, that's a 3rd level spell for remove curse.
Yeah.
So it should be on a spell list, but depending upon the party makeup, it may not be available immediately.
Yeah, because we got to thinking remove curse is technically on the cleric, paladin, warlock, and wizard spell list.
Yeah.
But realistically, if you don't have a cleric in your adventuring party, and you don't have a paladin, your tank is the fighter.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of a warlock, you have a wizard. What's the likelihood that the wizard's going to take remove curse?
Yep.
Over lightning bolt?
And like I said earlier, if it's a very RP heavy campaign, they could possibly have remove curse.
Yes,
Mm-hmm.
but if it's not an RP heavy campaign,
You're out of
the
luck.
likelihood is very low.
Yeah.
Dreadful Glare. The Mummy Lord targets one creature it can see within 60 feet of it. If the target can see the Mummy Lord, it must succeed on a DC 16 Wisdom saving throw against this magic or become frightened until the end of the mummy's next turn. If the target fails the saving throw by 5 or more, it is also paralyzed for the same duration. A target that succeeds on the saving throw is immune to Dreadful Glare of all mummies and mummy lords for the next 24 hours. Now just think about that for a second. So, if you fail it by 5 or more, paralyzed, it's different than stunned. Any attack that hits the creature is a critical hit if they're within 5 feet, which means if the Mummy Lord gives you the ooga booga booga eyes and then walks up his 20 feet and then hits you with a Rotting Fist, you take 6d6 plus 8 plus 12d6 necrotic damage.
Mm-hmm. And if the necrotic damage kills you, you turn to dust.
Yes.
I just love that Eric was basically just mouthing along with you the whole time you were ranting. Or at least it looked like you were.
Yeah, pretty much.
He's heard this argument before.
I've known him for quite a few years and have heard this argument quite a few times.
But it's also got legendary actions, and it can take 3 of them per round. It can make an attack with its fist or its Dreadful Glare. Blinding Dust and Sand swirls magically around the Mummy Lord with this ability, Blinding Dust. Each creature within 5 feet of the Mummy Lord must succeed on a DC 16 Constitution saving throw or be blinded until the end of the creature's next turn. For 2 actions, it can do Blasphemous Word. The Mummy Lord utters a blasphemous word, like
Moist.
ketchup chips. Moist.
Those are actually pretty good. Don't be hating.
What, moist ketchup chips?
Not moist ketchup chips, but ketchup chips.
Agreed.
Nasty.
Yes.
Each non-undead creature within 10 feet of the Mummy Lord that can hear the magical utterance must succeed on a 16 con save or be stunned until the end of the Mummy Lord's next turn. And there's that advantage on the Rotting Fist.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Most of legendary actions tend to lean that way.
Channel negative energy for 2 actions. The Mummy Lord magically unleashes negative energy. Creatures within 60 feet of the Mummy Lord,
Vibe, guys. It's just a very bad vibe.
including ones behind barriers and corners, can't regain hit points until the end of the Mummy Lord's next turn. No, this is the guy from Courage the Cowardly Dog.
yeah.
slab.
Yep.
Because he looked weak, but he did some spooky things.
Mm-hmm.
And finally,
he was a mummy.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, the last ability is straight out of the movie The Mummy. The good
Yeah,
one, not
it's-
the knockoff one that got remade.
Whirlwind of Sand 2 actions, magically transforms into a whirlwind of sand, moves up to 60 feet, and then reverts back to its normal form. He becomes immune to all damage in this form and can't be grappled, petrified, knocked prone, restrained, or stunned. And everything he's wearing or carrying with him remains in his possession. That's the lair actions, just to touch on them. Each undead creature in the lair can pinpoint the location of each living creature within 120 feet of it until the initiative count of 20 on the next round. So, bye-bye sneak and hide rogue.
Yeah.
Bye-bye invisibility.
You don't want to fight anyone in their lair, to be fair.
Yep.
No. Each undead in the lair has advantage on saving throws against effects that turn undead until initiative count 20. And until initiative count 20 on the next round, any non-undead creature that tries to cast a spell of 4th level or lower in the Mummy Lord's lair is racked with pain. The creature can choose another action, but if it tries to cast a spell, they have to make a 16 con save, and if they fail, they take 1d6 necrotic damage per level of the spell. And the spell has no effect and is wasted. So not only is it countered, but you get smacked for it, depending on how strong it was going to be.
Yeah.
And those are a lot of spell slots your wizard is losing out on.
Look, here's my argument. It sounds, when you just look at the stats, extremely weak. 97 health if you don't want to take the max. 17 AC, it's not that good, realistically. Because unless you're going to put, like I said, 6, say, 8th level characters against this, which I think would be about right for a hard encounter, it's going to be real easy to hit a 17 AC, because by that point you should have at least a +4 or, well, at least a +6 or 7 to hit with your attacks and spells. But then you come down and find out, oh, this is an undead cleric.
Yep.
This is arguably an undead cleric, and I am a cleric fanboy by far. It's the best class in 5e.
I don't know about that.
Drawing spells from the most powerful spell list in 5e, and then giving itself an opportunity to get a free crit on something that's doing 9d6 plus 4 damage, and then cursing them, along with the legendary action to stun them, make sure that nobody can regain hit points until the Mummy Lord's next turn. This is a better counter to the cleric than what was it we were looking at? The some kind of something.
Yeah, another one of those undead things that
it was. It did a certain amount of necrotic damage with this attack, and if a creature regained hit points, then the next attack, it did
at advantage, I think.
Oh
no, it did extra necrotic damage.
Mm.
It went from like
advantage.
It was like I think it did both, if I'm not mistaken.
Might have been.
It went from like 2d6 necrotic to 4 or 6d6 necrotic.
Yeah,
just because
like
they regained health, and it wasn't from magical effects. It was any kind of healing. So second wind, health potions, lay on hands. It was done.
Ouch. See, for me, the Mummy Lord, I would argue the Mummy Lord could be a 9 for the simple fact that it is a medium undead of any race.
Yes.
So whatever race you need this character to be, you can make it work. And it has almost total control within its lair.
Yeah, but that's within its lair. I don't know.
I mean, even outside the lair, though, it's like you don't want to, because it's got minions too, because it's going to have mummies obviously with it, and they also have mummy rot.
I mean, it's a lower level lich is essentially what they've set up here, because the rejuvenation, as long it's a knockoff phylactery, because you regain all your hit points and you become active again. And I get that what you're talking about with the spell casting, but you are limited to specific slots with each of those, other than the cantrips.
Yeah.
And you're using how many legendary? He's got 3 legendary actions.
Yeah, and that's me per round.
And that's per round. But if you're talking about throwing a group of 5 or 6 into this, they can easily beat up on. I mean, it doesn't give him, unless I missed it, it doesn't give him a whole lot of mobility.
That would be the legendary action of Whirlwind of Sand.
Okay.
The biggest,
That's the only
biggest
one.
thing
That's two. That's two of your actions that you have spent to get out of there.
But there's also Hold Person to lock that down. Guardian of Faith to lock a area down.
Mm-hmm.
Harm, I mean, realistically, you really only do this when you're like, okay, it's time to really make them back off for a second.
Mm-hmm.
You cast Harm, and then you do your legendary action of Channel Negative Energy.
Yeah. But Hold Person only holds one, and you can only do that at three times, unless you're wanting to do Spiritual Weapon or Silence. Like, I could see, I'm not saying it needs to be super low, but I don't know whether I would say I would put it at 9.
Well, see, it's got slots, and as far as I know, there's nothing that says that things can't be upcast.
Fair, I suppose.
So technically, if you knew that there was a good possibility that Whole Person would work at least against 3 of those 6, you could cast it at fourth level and get those 3, and then just maintain your concentration. Wait on any kind of different spells, because I know Harm's not a concentration spell. I don't believe. Well, Animate Dead is just, it's a minute casting time, so that's gonna be rough. But there's an Insect Plague. There's Insect Plague for difficult terrain, but what's helping him out a good bit also is the magic resistance. To where he's got vulnerability to fire, but he's got advantage on the save for, say, Lightning Bolt or Fireball, even though he has no pluses. He has no plus to his deck saves.
Yeah, at this point, the Wizard's the only one that's going to have fire, probably.
I mean, to me, the only thing that saves him in this is, as far as being as powerful as what you're saying, is his damage immunities. We've reached a point. This is one of, I think, 2 that I've seen. I think the Death Shroud was the only other one I saw that it had to be magical attacks that you were hitting it with to do damage. This one, if it's non-magical, then he doesn't take any damage from it, which does mean that 97 hit points could last significantly longer if you have a character, let's say like a monk. The only thing that he does is the little bonus extra chi effect or key points, unless he's already reached the point where his hands are magical attacks.
Well, a monk reaches that point at 6th level, and I don't see a DM, unless they're absolutely heartless, putting anything up below 8th level up against this guy.
Unless this is a get in, get out kind of scenario. But if you're fighting it, you've got to be pretty high level.
He's got a low passive perception, so you could sneak by. I don't know.
Yeah.
What level are you thinking?
Do what?
What level are you thinking? What's your argument?
I would honestly no lower than a 9. And the reason I say that is because, yes, he's doing a lot of damage, and he's got the Mummy Rot. The Mummy Rot is a very dangerous thing if you don't have access to Remove Curse. But on top of that, because it can use both Dreadful Glare and then Mummy Rot, even if he misses the Rotting Fist, then he still has access to his Cleric spell list as backup. So it's a Rotting Fist and Dreadful Glare, and then just in case, he's got the Cleric list as those spells from the Cleric list as a backup. It's on top of all of that, along with his legendary actions. And God forbid you're facing him in a lair.
See, here's my counter to that. Theoretically speaking, he is only super deadly to melee fighters. If you put him up against somebody at range, that Rotting Fist becomes a moot point.
Yeah, it's pretty useless after that.
Until Whirlwind of Sand, and he moves 60 feet towards them.
On your turn.
But then again, you have to also think about if the Rangers have got a longbow, which I think they start with, they've got a range of 150 feet, so he's not going to be anywhere near them, and that's when Guiding Bolt's going to have to come in. Here's my deal. I think he's much better than the Eldritch Lich. I seriously believe he's much better than the Eldritch Lich.
He is.
Really, the Eldritch Lich, the only thing it had was the Parasite.
But the Eldritch Lich was our 5.
Yeah.
So negotiate to 7?
Yeah, that's where I'm leaning. I could maybe see this as a 7. Maybe. What do you think, Eric?
I don't know. That that low health gets me, and then it's got, I don't know.
I think I go back to, if you have a smart team that's not full of melee fighters. Now that would be where a DM would be heartless enough to throw it in. But if you have a team that's smart enough to distance themselves around whatever space they're in, then that whirlwind only is going to affect one at a time, and you're still getting hit from every other side with magical attacks.
Now,
That's the kicker to it.
This would completely wreck the people in my game because they're all about flanking.
Yeah.
Not all of us. Not all of us.
Well, there's a reason I changed the ruling on flanking to try it out, because it's about to get real.
That is true.
Yeah, I could argue 7. I could be convinced that it's a 6. I don't know whether I'd go below that. Personally.
I would say as a base 7.
But you couldn't go below 9.
in its layer, a 9.
I'd agree with that.
In its layer, but even as Marie pointed out, you don't want to fight anything in its layer.
Oh yeah.
In its layer, Lord, give me a fireball comes to mind.
Yeah.
I think if you really look at it though, the layer actions for the Mummy Lord are screwing you over more often than the layer actions for, say, let me look at the Moonstone Dragon layer actions real quick. Make sure I'm not misspeaking.
The Moonstone Dragon has a lot of stuff to it. I didn't go over all of them, but it basically just messes with your mind a good bit.
Yeah.
And most creatures, you hit their layer, they know you're there.
This doesn't so much lock you down with this layer effect, layer actions or anything like that, but it's boosting its friends on 1. Can pinpoint the location of each living creature within 120 feet of it, and that's each undead creature in there. So, like I said, the rogue is screwed on that if they're hiding or trying to hide, or the wizard that casts greater invisibility, that's done too. It's the automatic counter spell if they fail the Constitution saving throw. I think that's what's going to put it at a 9 in its layer.
Yeah.
I feel like this is one that's just going to be divided around no matter what we do.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm getting like some Mumra vibes off of it, but that's about as cool as it gets.
Better that than Bubba Hotep. Yeah, I'll 6 or 7 final offer.
Yeah, I can go Donald.
We'll take 7.
7. Yeah.
As a CR15, we'll take a 7.
Yeah.
We've yet to find our Ezra Miller. We need to find our Ezra Miller.
Oh, hang on. We'll see what this one comes up with.
Yeah, I was about to say there's one on here I could put it Ezra Miller, and it's because I hate the character.
Is it the Nabasu?
No.
Okay, cool. Moving on to Nabasu.
Is it the one after Nabasu?
It is 2 after Nabasu.
Okay. Well, I will say I'm going to argue on one of them. One of them is going to be my 10.
So until we get there, the Nabasu is a medium fiend. So chaotic evil, obviously. Armor class of 18, hit points, 190 base with 20 d8 plus 100. Speed of 40 feet with a fly speed of 60 feet. 22 strength, 14 dex, 21 constitution, 14 intelligence, 15 wisdom, and 17 charisma. At this point, I think most creatures are sentient for the most part, and when it comes to combat. Saving throw is 11 in strength and 7 in dex, with a 7 perception. It is resistant to cold, fire, lightning, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, and immune to poison. It's got dark vision and past perception of 17. And it does have telepathy for one of its languages. So it has demonic shadows. It can darken the area around its body in a 10-foot radius, and non-magical light cannot illuminate this area. So it becomes very difficult to see it. And devour soul. The Basu can eat the soul of a creature it has killed within the last hour, provided that creature is neither a construct nor an undead. Requires a Nabasu to be within 5 feet of the corpse for at least 10 minutes, after which it gains a number of hit points equal to half the creature's number of hit die. For every 4 hit dice the Nabasu gains this way, it deals an extra 3 damage on a hit. And that benefit lasts for 6 days. And if it eats you, you only come back with a wish spell. So you don't want to get left behind with this guy.
Yeah.
That's rough.
And it's got magic resistance, because of course. So it's got a multi-attack with a bite attack and a claw attack. And then it can use its soul-stealing gaze. So it can use all 3 of these in once. So bite attack is plus 11 to hit with a 38 necrotic damage. Claw attack is 11 to hit with a 28 force damage. And then soul-stealing gaze. Oh, goodness. It targets a creature it can see within 30 feet. Again, not a construct or undead. The creature must succeed on a DC 16 charisma saving throw or take 13 necrotic damage. The target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to necrotic damage dealt. And the Nabasu regains hit points equal to half that amount. This reduction lasts until the target finishes a short or long rest. And if it dies, if its hit point maximum is reduced to 0, and if the target is a humanoid, it immediately becomes a ghoul.
Ooh.
Nasty.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
The ghoul is...
So
Yeah.
we're hitting creatures that basically turn you into their minions
That's
once you
better
take enough
than-
damage.
Better than the gibbering mouther.
Not by
Oh, yeah, that's
much.
a lot better than the Jimmering
Fair.
Mouth, because if they hit, it will look. If they hit, if a ghoul hits with its melee attack, it's only a Constitution saving throw of 10. But if for some reason you fail that, you're paralyzed for a minute.
Don't get me started on that.
Exactly, it's a ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
I
Yeah,
was
and
paralyzed for how many rounds that game?
6.
yeah, and that's reducing your hit point maximum. Once you start knocking that down, healing is no longer going to be helpful to you because you can't heal that extra damage you're taking.
The Nabasu is actually pretty cool. The AC and health with a flying speed of 60 feet, along with resistance to 3 elemental types and non-magical attacks, and an immunity to poison. Which, I mean, it's a fiend,
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be immune to poison.
Mm-hmm.
But for a stat block that's not very long,
Mm-hmm.
I find it just as intimidating as the Sapphire Dragon or the Moonstone Dragon,
If not more so.
Yeah.
because this brings in a lot more chance and some very serious consequences.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for me, it's between the Moonstone Dragon and this. I would want to pet the Moonstone Dragon. I would not want to pet this.
No,
Well,
The Moonstone Dragon is like here kitty vibes. This is no.
I wouldn't mind petting this with a mace.
and the Devour Soul ability is any soul that's died within the last hour or has been killed in the last hour. So, you think about a fight, you aren't dragging bodies with you. So if you're fighting this thing like, I will just leave, are you going to take those bodies with you that fell? Because that's health that this thing is regaining when it chases you down.
That's a good question, because if the Nabasu is sitting there and you metagamed enough as a player to know that you've only done about half its health, and there are 2 of you that are down, one of you was ranged, and because it's been flying around all over the place, but the other guy just went down right beside him. Do you go for that guy and risk going down and it being a TPK? Or do you say, I'm sorry, my friend, we will remember you, and then peace out?
When we get to that, 20 level with that wish spell, we'll get you back.
I know we're only 8th level. It'll be fine. We'll see you in a year.
New character. No, this guy to me feels like a solid 8. It's got enough to keep it interesting, but not too much to overwhelm.
Yeah.
And being a fiend, you can mix it into just about any fight.
I'll be real. I'd argue for this one for the first 10 that we've got.
Really?
It's intriguing and unique enough. It's actually, the telepathy language means that it can also mess around with you. The pictures I'm seeing of it are of it being solid black, which means this thing could easily hide when still, not when moving,
Mm.
but when still. So
Yes.
it can do easily surprise attacks on your characters.
Mm.
Plus the fact that it's got darkening shadows, so it can add to that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is the first one that I've seen that I'm like, I could see this at a 10. It's the Reese's peanut butter cup. It's simple but effective in what all it matches together.
Mm.
More so than most of the ones we've seen thus far.
True.
Yeah.
I would rather face a mummy lord than this.
Maybe.
Well, see, there's a good comparison. The Mummy Lord and its lair compared to this, I see as being just as deadly, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, maybe.
I would be fine with the Nabasu going into a number 9, since we kind of agreed that the Mummy Lord and lair was 9, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That's
Well, I
the
think you
Nabasu
agreed
belongs
that a
in
Mummy
9.
Lord was 9.
That's because you're a fool, Eric.
And
You don't know how to do math.
listen, I can a little bit.
I don't know if
And
we
you got
want to
the
argue that,
diabetes.
considering some of the math discussions we've had thus far.
Listen, I don't have to. I'm not in math class at the moment in college, so leave me alone. I did pass my math class though.
Barely.
No, I made a 98 in math.
Nah, that's not 100. You disappoint me, sir. The Skull Lord.
Yep. So there's 2 versions of this. And I specifically tagged the legacy version because some of the updated monsters are cool, but most of the time they take away the stuff that makes them cool.
Like the 100-handed one.
Yeah, it's like whatever made that monster cool, they
Legacy.
get rid of it. It's like, no, I liked him. Because I have it on the app. I'm like, which one is on the app? Because I don't know. There's not much difference. There's only 1 or 2 small ability changes, but they were pretty major
Well, it
ability
is
changes.
not available on D&D Beyond.
It should be.
It is not allowing me to see. They revisit older content to improve or adjust them.
I
The
found
legacy
it
version?
on GitHub, I think. Yeah, does the legacy version have access to Finger of Death?
Yes.
Yep, I've got it pulled up.
Yep. Okay, good. It is one on the app. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, this looks like a fun chap.
He looks pretty cool.
He,
I will give him that.
he looks like somebody watched too much Masters of the Universe. And
Hey.
Skeletor knockoff.
Yeah.
Hey,
So
now.
notable. He's like, ha, see?
I mean, he's got multiple heads, kind of. I don't think they do anything. I think it's just decoration on the armor.
Yeah.
Is it ha 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 ha?
Okay, so you said you can't view that one.
I can kind of see the stat block, but it doesn't tell me what each of the abilities is. So no, I can't do that one,
Okay.
unfortunately.
Rob, would you like to take this one?
Yeah, because I don't need to be the one to read Strahd.
Let Casey do that one.
Yeah.
The Skull Lord is a medium undead with an armor class of 18 wearing plate armor. Just your mother's china on its chest. 105 hit points or a max of 14d8 plus 42 for a maximum health of 154. I believe.
Let me quick math that.
Should be. Go ahead. Quick math me.
Yes, you are correct, sir.
Okay. 30-foot movement speed. Immune to poison. Resistant to cold, necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. And immune to the blinded, charmed, deafened, exhaustion, frightened, poison, stunned, and unconscious conditions.
Sure about that?
That's what it says anyway. I'll have
That's
to
the longest we've got so far.
Yeah, it is.
I'll have to do some digging to make sure it's true.
Mm.
Fact check that. Dark vision of 60 feet and a passive perception of 22.
Mm-hmm.
+7 to athletics, +8 to history and stealth, and +12 to perception. And it knows all the languages it knew in life.
So this is another mummy lord.
This is a cooler mummy lord.
Yes.
He's not wrapped up.
Has 3 uses of legendary resistance. Master of the Grave. While within 30 feet of the Skull Lord, any undead ally of the Skull Lord makes saving throws with advantage, and that ally regains 1d6 hit points whenever it starts its turn there. Oh, wow.
Yeah. So you put a couple skeletons with this guy, they're not going to go down as easy.
They'll still go down fairly
Oh.
easy.
Depending upon the undead, because it's any undead.
Yeah. Not skeletons.
Yeah.
Maybe a ghast,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because they're the stronger version of a ghoul, aren't
Mhm.
Yeah.
they? Evasion. If the Skull Lord is subjected to an effect that allows it to make a dexterity saving throw to take only half damage, the Skull Lord instead takes no damage if it succeeds the save, and only half of it
not?
fails.
So it was a rogue in his past life.
Now, granted, this thing does not have magic resistance. So at least there's that, because if it
Yeah.
had magic resistance, then it'd be stupid.
But this is their action instead of a reaction.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Cantrips. This guy is a charisma-based caster at 13th level, DC of 18 and a +10 to hit. And it's a bit of a list.
Mm-hmm.
It is Skeletor.
And it's the sorcerer's spell
It's
list, so it probably
spellcasting
is
is
Skeletor.
charisma.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Cantrips are Chill Touch, Firebolt, Mage Hand, Poison Spray, Ray of Frost, and Shocking Grasp. First level, 4 slots, Magic Missile, Expeditious Retreat, and Thunderwave. Thunderwave, very useful.
Till we
Mhm.
meet again.
Just cast Thunderwave, they get launched. Until we meet again!
Expeditious retreat. He's out.
Second level, Mirror Image and Scorching Ray. Third, Fear and Haste, all until we meet again, double speed.
Yep.
Yeah.
Dimension door.
Fourth level, Dimension Door and Ice Storm. Fifth, Cloud Kill and Cone of Cold. Sixth, Eye Bite, and seventh, Finger of Death.
I'm not gonna lie. These are all good spells, but they could not have picked a more nerdy list. Nerdy sounding list of spells.
Oh yeah. Well,
I bite.
I think the 3 that really saved the list from being, well, 4. The 4 that saved the list from being a joke
Mhm.
are Finger of Death, Cloud Kill, Cone of Cold, and Haste.
Yeah. Just by name. Yeah.
I mean,
Because-
they're solid spells in general.
They
all of
are.
them.
Yeah, they are. They are.
Because if it attack, well, let's do this first. It makes 3 Bone Staff attacks. The Bone Staff is a +8 to hit with a 5-foot reach. 1d8 +3 bludgeoning damage. +4d6 necrotic.
Yeah.
Now, under the rulings of haste, you can only use that extra action to make a melee attack or a weapon attack. So he uses haste on himself, and then
6 attacks.
he makes 6 attacks.
Jeez.
That's 6d8 +18 plus 24d6 of necrotic damage. And because he's because he's a Skull Lord, you'll eventually become an undead to where he can say his catchphrase of "until we meet again."
Mhm.
The legendary actions, though, the Bone Staff costs two actions. He can cast a cantrip. He can move up to its speed without provoking opportunity attacks, and that's actually really good for him not to have anything else outside of Dimension Door. And Summon Undead costs 3. Up to 5 skeletons or zombies appear in the unoccupied spaces within 30 feet of the Skull Lord and remain until destroyed. Undead summoned this way roll initiative and act on the next available turn. The Skull Lord can have up to 5 undead summoned by this ability at a time, and realistically, you could probably mix it up and say 2 skeletons and 3 zombies. That way you've got 3 melee and 2 that are going to be at range.
Yeah, it's just cannon fodder to keep him busy at that point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This guy's really good.
And I will
Like,
say,
he's well-rounded.
The updated version is pretty much similar. It simplifies the spell casting. So if you don't want as many spells to keep up with, you can go with the simpler version. He also gets Deathly Ray, so he can do a ranged spell attack with that. And he can't do a cantrip as a legendary action. So he still has Summon Undead and most of the stuff. You just don't get all the cool spells. So if you want a simpler spell list, the new version will work still.
It'll work, but you're losing out on Finger of Death and you're only getting Cloud Kill, Cone of Cold, Dimension Door, Fear, Mage Hand, and Message. So you're even losing out on your Shocking Grasp and your Poison Spray.
Yeah.
Because Mirror Image is arguably outside of Haste, the most useful spell on that spell list.
For new DMs, I'd recommend the updated one just because it's easier to track.
Yeah.
For experienced DMs, take the spell list.
And have fun. Because you're going to.
And then just summon undead every single turn. Like, you knocked out my last undead, here's 5 more for you to fight.
Well, I'll go ahead and tell you, I like this guy a lot more than I do the next guy that's coming up.
I get the feeling in your eyes we've found our Ezra Miller.
Yeah.
We might need to bump him to the last one we talked about just to make sure we have time.
No.
Oh, look, if this is 2 hours, I will upload a 2-hour episode. I don't care.
Hey, I'm not editing it.
We'll have 5 listeners either way, so.
We just might be busting out snacks at that point.
Hey.
So we can go heat up food real quick. It's fine. So,
man, I'm out of popcorn too.
I think, honestly, the Skull Lord, I think it deserves an honorable 10 if there wasn't some, well, with what's left.
we only got 3 more left, and I don't think any of them are going to hit a 10.
I'm arguing hard for
Casey.
one of them.
Casey will make. I know the one Casey will. The other 2 I don't think are going to hit a 10. They're cool, but I don't think they're going to hit 10.
Your Mummy Lord has not had an entire campaign made about its layers, so.
Oh yeah, but Strahd.
Yet.
We'll talk about it in a second.
We'll get there when we get past
this guy is an absolute piece of garbage.
Let's deal with Skeletor first.
Skeletor, in my book, deserves an honorable 10, but I think realistically, in everyday walk of life, he should be an 8.
I think an 8's a fair one. This is one of those characters a DM could play him terrifying, and it'd be like every undead villain in video games, or you could play it like Skeletor and make him goofy.
With the spell list that he's got, it's goofy.
So, like,
I want to see Denzel Washington play a live-action Skeletor.
If only I could do a Denzel Washington impersonation right now, because I'm just hearing Denzel Washington saying "until we meet again."
Yes,
and he'd actually make it sound cool.
It would be cool.
That's the problem, is that he would make it too cool. It's like, oh wow. Yeah.
No, I'm just my Skeletor. Every time he casts a spell, he's saying the name of the spell.
Yes, what I was
just
imagining.
The anime. Mirror image. Scorching ray. Haste. Except for Expeditious Retreat. That's the only. Until we meet again.
That's the spellcasting word for that one.
Then he gets Summon Undead. Again, we have met.
No, I think 8's fair for that guy with all the stuff he's got.
Yeah,
I gotta give him a 9 though.
Yeah, I'd lean more towards the 9, but
the legacy version especially gets the 9.
8.5.
The other one gets
your
8.
Players love to come across because
the Spanish Inquisition. There it is. There's our Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody expects Skeletor.
All right, just because I know this character is going to cause problems, we're going to skip him and come back. No. So we're going to go to Tempt of Spirit.
Okay.
Just so that way there I can just let Casey and Rob go at it at the end of the episode.
Let it fester for a few minutes.
Yeah. We'll let the listeners decide how much they want to listen to that debate, and then they can just end the episode early.
Just look at how much is left on the list for the podcast. Yep.
So the Tempt of Spirit is essentially, this is a giant ghost. Are we lost? Did he leave? We lost sound?
He's looking up Strahd at this point, probably. He's getting together his list of arguments.
Do I keep going? He's back, maybe.
Go ahead.
Okay. It went quiet for a minute. Like, what happened?
It's a djinn.
Okay, so huge undead. Typically evil. Armor class is 12, so not great armor class. Hit points is 17d12 plus 85, so 195 average. It has technically 0 movement speed, but that's because it flies for 60 feet. So it's just floating all the time.
Hover, not
Hover
fly.
feet, yeah. A hover speed of 60 feet.
He's a low-laying fog.
24 strength, 14 dex, 20 constitution, 16 intelligence, 18 wisdom, and 19 charisma. Arcana is +8 and perception is +9. This guy is resistance to cold, necrotic, poison, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks. And he's immune to lightning and thunder because Tempest Spirit. He's also immune to charmed, exhaustion, fright, grapple, paralyzed, petrified, poison, prone, and restraint. I think this list is longer. Yeah, there's a lot of P's at the end of that one for some reason. Passive perception is 19, and he speaks common and giant. He has incorporeal movement. Spirit can move through other creatures and objects as if they were difficult terrain. The spirit takes 5 force damage if it ends its turn inside an object. So it has to make its way through something. It's also huge, so it just means that if your little halfling gnome is in the way, it's just going to walk through it with no problem. And it does have legendary resistance. And yeah, basically the image looks like a giant with like a genie bottom to it because it's just cloud. This is what I imagine Zeus looks like in all of the animated cartoons.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yep.
The Tempest Spirit has multi-attack. He can make 2 lightning fists, or hailstone attacks in any combination. So lightning fist is a +12 to hit, and it is 25 lightning damage. Hailstone is a ranged attack, +12 to hit, and it is 17 bludgeoning damage and 7 cold damage. And then Death Bolt, which is a great name for an attack.
Okay.
Hurls a magical lightning bolt in a 120-foot line that's 10 feet wide. Each creature makes a DC 18 dexterity saving throw, taking 27 lightning damage, that is 68, plus 3d10 necrotic damage on a failed save, or half on a success. And whether it succeeds or fails, a creature's hit point maximum is reduced by the amount equal to necrotic damage taken, and lasts until long rest. And then as a bonus action, it can do a hailstorm. So it can conjure up a 20-foot radius, a hailstorm that is 40 feet high. So this is basically just a cylinder of storm that's coming in. And centered at any point it can see within 120 feet, must make a DC 17 dexterity saving throw, or take 3d6 bludgeoning damage, plus 3d6 cold damage, and you're prone. So this guy is not necessarily moving around, but you really don't want to be in the way of his attacks.
I mean, that's just as good as having a lot of mobility, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to get too close, but you don't want to stay out in the open for too long either, because that death bolt's stupid. Yeah, death bolt is just stupid.
That's the thing. This is one of those that most things, if you succeed, you take nothing, or you take like half damage and that's it. This thing, whether you succeed or fail, if you're in the range of this sucker, it's gonna do damage to you.
Yeah.
Like, your rogue is about the only one that might not take damage from this.
I gotta put him at least an 8, at least. Like, honestly.
I'm solidly. You might disagree with me on this. I'm solidly in 5 or 4 territory.
Really?
Yeah.
Eesh.
This. I would rather fight one of or I would be more inclined to be afraid of the Eldritch Lich than this guy.
Well, during the fight or after the fact?
Either.
See, to me, this guy's at least a 6 or a 7, because he's got enough area control on the battlefield to make it interesting, while having enough damage to where your party has to be worried about being hit.
Yeah, but this is also the third massive character that we've run across in this game. We've got the 100-handed, we've got this guy, and we've got, what was the other one? It was
giant shrouded.
Death Giant Shroud.
Mhm.
So this is the third giant type character that we've run across, not even counting the dragon, but the third giant type character we've run across. Is he more intimidating than the other two?
Mm,
I don't know about that one.
That's why I
think-
say I would go into a 4. Because again, the Lich is more intimidating merely by the fact that the Lich can come back at you. Like, yes, this has the problem with the necrotic, but that's in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
I could give him a David Doberman.
A 5.
David Dot. Sure, I can give it a David Dotson.
I'll still argue for a 7, but I'll let you guys claim your 5.
I'd still argue a 4, but I'll take a 5 if that's where we're landing.
This guy definitely would be really fun with a Storm Giant.
Oh,
if you're doing a giant campaign, mixing him with some Storm Giants is supposed to be a very good minion to throw in, especially at high levels.
And see,
for combat.
Absolutely.
that's the other reason why I say a 4. He would make a solid support character. But as a main combat in a campaign, it's forgettable.
You can be wrong. It's fine.
I'm going to do a rapid fire on the vampire spellcaster to where we can get to this Strahd argument.
Go
because
for
I
it.
gotta
I
be-
mean,
I got to
the
be somewhere
vampire
in 40 minutes.
spellcaster is about the same thing as Strahd.
About to say, we can combine them if we need to, because I realize how long a stat block this is. Like, oof.
So the vampire spellcaster, 16 AC, 144 health, or you can take the max of 17d8 plus 68 with a movement speed of 30. Has plus 9 to the dexterity and 9 to charisma saving throws, and a plus 7 to wisdom. Also has a plus 7 to perception and a plus 9 for stealth. Put this in half speed. Has resistance to necrotic, bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing from non-magical attacks, along with a dark vision of 120 feet and a passive perception of 17, and it knows all the languages it knew in life because it is undead. It's also a shape changer. If the vampire isn't in sunlight or running water, it can use its action to polymorph into a tiny bat or a medium cloud of mist or back to its true form. While in bat form, the vampire can't speak. Its walking speed is 5, and it has a flying speed of 30 feet. Its statistics, other than its size and speed, are unchanged. Anything that it's wearing transformed with it, but nothing it is carrying does. It reverts back to its true form when it dies. Now, while in mist form, the vampire can't take any action, speak, or manipulate objects. It's weightless and has a flying speed of 20 feet, can hover and can enter a hostile creature's space and to stop there. In addition, if air can pass through a space, the mist can do so without squeezing, and it can't pass through water. It has advantage on strength and dexterity and constitution saving throws, and is immune to all non-magical damage except for the damage it takes from sunlight. Good news, he's got 3 uses of legendary resistance. Misty Escape. When it drops to 0 hit points outside of its resting place, the vampire transforms into a cloud of mist as the shape changer trait instead of falling unconscious, provided that it isn't in sunlight or running water. If it can't transform, it's destroyed. While it has 0 hit points in mist form, it can't revert back to its vampire form, and it must reach its resting place within 2 hours or be destroyed. Once it's in its resting place, it reverts back to its vampire form, and it is then paralyzed until it regains at least 1 hit point. After spending 1 hour in its resting place with 0 hit points, it regains 1. And it's got regeneration, where it gains 20 health at the start of each of its turns, if it has at least 1 hit point and isn't in sunlight or running water. It also is canceled out by radiant damage or damage from holy water. It is a 9th level spellcaster with a spell save DC of 16 and a plus 8 to hit with spell attacks, and it's got wizard spells for once. The cantrips are Mage Hand, Prestidigitation, Ray of Frost. First level is Comprehend Languages, Fog, Cloud, and Sleep. Second level, Detect Thoughts, Gust of Wind, Mirror Image. Third level, Animate Dead, Bestow Curse, Non-Detection. Fourth level, Blight, Greater Invisibility. And fifth level, Dominate Person. It also has Spider Climb. The vampire can climb difficult surfaces without, including upside down and on ceilings, without needing to make an ability check. Vampire Weakness. Where'd it go? I scrolled too far. There it is. The vampire has the following falls. Forbiddance. It can't enter a residence without being invited. It takes 20 acid damage if it ends its turn in running water. And if it gets a stake to the heart by a piece of wood, It is incapacitated in its resting place, and the vampire is paralyzed until the stake is removed. It also has sunlight hypersensitivity, where it takes 20 radiant damage when it starts its turn in sunlight, and while it's in sunlight, it has a disadvantage on attack rolls and ability checks.
Thing is basically just take Dracula, and that's basically what this thing is.
Yep.
It also has multi-attack, only in its vampire form. The vampire makes 2 attacks, only one of which can be a bite. The unarmed strike is a +9 to hit, 5-foot reach, 1d8 +4 bludgeoning damage. Instead of dealing damage, the vampire can grapple the target with an escape DC of 18. The bite in vampire or bat form is +9 to hit, 5-foot reach, 1 willing creature or a creature that's grappled by the vampire, incapacitated or restrained, where it takes 1d6 +4 piercing damage plus 3d6 necrotic damage, and the target's hit point maximum is reduced by an amount equal to the necrotic damage taken, and the vampire regains hit points equal to that amount. The reduction lasts until the target finishes a long rest, and the target dies with this effect, reduces it to a maximum of 0, and a humanoid sane from this way, and then buried in the ground, rises the following night as a vampire spawn under the vampire's control. Charm. The vampire targets 1 humanoid it can see within 30 feet. If it fails a DC 17 wisdom saving throw against the magic, it is charmed by the vampire. The charmed target regards the vampire as a trusted friend to be heeded and protected. Although the target isn't under the vampire's control, it takes the vampire's requests and actions in the most favorable way it can, and it is a willing target for the vampire's bite attack. Each time the vampire or the vampire's companions do anything harmful to the target, it can repeat the saving throw, ending the effect on itself on a success. Otherwise, the effect lasts 24 hours or until the vampire is destroyed, is on a different plane of existence than the target, or takes a bonus action to the end the effect. Children of Night, 1 time per day. The vampire magically calls 2d4 swarms of bats or rats, provided that the sun isn't up. While outside, the vampire can call 3d6 wolves instead. The called creatures arrive in 1d4 rounds, acting as allies to the vampire and obeying its spoken commands. The beasts remain for 1 hour until the vampire dies, or until the vampire dismisses them as a bonus action. It's also got 3 legendary actions, 3 per round. It can move without provoking opportunity attacks up to its speed, make an unarmed strike, or for 2 actions, make a bite attack.
So I go back to this is old school Dracula.
Yeah.
And for a speed run round, I would put him at a 7. Because it has that classic charm of it's Dracula. This is the vampire that everyone knows and loves. But it's not an especially tough fight on its own unless you give him a bunch of allies.
Yeah, the only thing is this is just me. I know, and I feel the same way about aberrations. I just don't necessarily enjoy vampires. I don't really enjoy vampires that much. So
You don't enjoy the fun things.
I can't look. I'm a monstrosity guy. I don't think I could put. I don't think I could put him above a 6.
I'd give him a 7. He's a Donald.
Here's my take. Wherever we're putting him, the next guy that we're going to discuss is going to end up going higher because it's a named character.
Well, there's our Ezra Miller.
Yep, here we go. Number
Vampire
1,
spellcaster
classic vampire.
freaking sucks. You can put Strahd at 2 now.
Well, I did open this can of worms.
Mm-hmm.
You did.
So with the flexible ranking on the vampire spellcaster, Casey, do you want to go into our last monster cover?
Yeah, give me just a second to get back to it.
This will also probably have to be a slight speed round, I imagine, just because there's going to be a ton to cover. And we also technically we did cover a lot with the vampire spellcaster because it does copy a lot of that over.
Yeah, I was going to say at the very least for this, I'll probably cut the pieces that are already there. Just change it around. Come on, D&D Beyond. Because there's also Strahd Zombie. D&D Beyond, where you too could also seem incompetent, even not in paper version.
You want to? Oh man, Casey, oh no.
What?
You realize that Strahd von Zarevich and the vampire spellcaster is a carbon copy and paste.
Did they just copy it over?
For real.
Everything
Pretty
is the
much.
exact same.
For real.
Everything is the exact
Well,
same.
wolf form. He has wolf form.
Oh well, yeah, wolf form. I think that's the.
He's
I
also
think that's
got
the only
his.
difference.
He comes with minions, I
it's
guess. And
different
he's got
spellcasting.
some different layer effects.
He has a castle, I would assume.
He has a village.
Oh, okay. It's a little better.
Look, here's my thing. The main reason that Strahd as a character deserves to be high on the list is that what the vampire spellcaster lacks in personality and style and approach, Strahd gives you. It's nothing to
I
do with
will
the
give you
stats
that
and
much.
statistics. It is nothing to do with the stats and statistics. It is everything to do with how this character behaves. If you just throw a party up against a vampire spellcaster, they're going to take it down. You throw them up against a character that's named, they are instantly going to have a look of hesitation of what is going to change here. I mean, even we did that. Before we ever looked at the stat block, we were under the assumption that there was going to be all of these differences purely by the fact that it's a named character.
Well, not only that, but even as a DM, specifically if you're playing, even if somebody's gone through Curse of Strahd before, it's a named character. You have the freedom of changing some stuff up, double his freaking health, make him a named character, give him a 20 AC, put him at a point to where he deserves to be named instead of sharing stuff with a vampire spellcaster, which could be easily forgotten because they got the same AC, the same health, the same movement, everything the exact same except for the wolf form.
Strahd is by the fact that he is a named character, it is one of the few moments in D&D where it is not only acceptable but expected to subvert set of expectations.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, Strahd the name and for Curse of Strahd, I give it a 10. But because I knew that it was a vampire spellcaster, that's why I said that's our Ezra Miller, because they were just lazy.
That's fair.
They could have made something absolutely amazing for Strahd, and I don't know which came first. They could have just made a carbon copy.
Has more to it than this, though. But I guess maybe the stat block card that we have is just this.
The stat block, I think, is just this.
Okay.
But the main reason, to your point, if for any listeners out there that don't know where Strahd came from, it came from exactly what Rob's talking about. That it was a person who was playing D&D with his party, and they were going through, I think it was a cave or a cavern, and a vampire just came out of nowhere. And there was a fight, and it was a battle, and it was done, and yay, hoorah. But for the creator, the eventual creator of Strahd, his expectation was, why was that vampire even there? What was the point of it? If we're going to have a vampire, then we need to make a vampire that is absolutely terrifying. And that's where he came up with the idea for Strahd. Let's play. Let's do what DMs are supposed to do. Take a random stat block and actually make it something worth being scared of.
Here's an idea. For a way down the line, well, maybe not so much way down the line, but for a future episode, Casey, would you and Marie like to come back and make Strahd great again?
Make Barovia great again.
Yeah, I mean, turn Strahd into this absolutely to where. What level does Curse of Strahd take you to?
It takes you to 12, I believe, is
12?
top or 10. But here's what I will say. I would love to do so, but I don't know if I can do it with Marie, because that was going to be one of the games that I ran on Dreadful Tales, and I already had some ideas prepped that I pulled from other people.
I will opt out of that episode so Casey can get a decent stat block for Strahd.
It's going to be a while.
And just make sure to put somewhere in the notes, Marie, don't listen to this episode.
It's going to be a while in coming, but I would totally be down.
That's 100% fine.
I have found a Strahd stat block on Reddit that someone has customized them up to a CR 18.
That sounds better.
Yep.
Give us the AC, health, and some of the...
AC is 21 in armor.
Yes.
Yep.
Hit points is 244.
Yep.
Let's see. Looks like he's got all the same... No, he doesn't have religion and saving their skills check. He's got a 14 Arcana, 14 History, 14 Perception, Insight of 10, and Stealth of 16.
I like that.
Yeah, bumps him up a little bit.
Yeah, Misty Escape, Regeneration.
Does he have anything above a 5th level spell slot?
He has 6th, 7th, and 8th.
Ooh, yeah,
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
what he needs.
Because I'm sorry, when it comes into something being named that just came out of a random encounter in a cave with a vampire, you would think, okay, well, this vampire's been around long enough
Yeah.
where
Mm-hmm.
if he's gonna, come back to life, then he's gonna get more powerful, because that's what Dracula did. He didn't just
Yeah.
start off as this ridiculously powerful vampire. He turned into a vampire, became Dracula, and then became the legend of Dracula.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What needs to happen is they need to update Strahd's stat block, make Strahd a legacy character. And the reason I say that is because, lest we forget, Strahd was the first one that Hasbro was directly, or Wizards of the Coast was directly involved in creating. The first 2 campaigns that they did, it was outsourced.
Mm.
So maybe I'm forgiving it a bit too much, because I love the idea of Strahd as a character, but I can accept a lot of what currently is there as we always say, it's purely guidelines.
Mm.
It's
Yeah.
a decent starter, and you can absolutely fiddle with it and make it better. So Strahd,
And
is 10.
That's
Named
Strahd.
character
The
is a
name
10.
is a 10. The named character is a 10. The stat block gets an Ezra Miller,
Yeah, the name and the lore behind him and all that is
because
a 10, but the stat
they
block-
did Strahd there. I don't necessarily, like I said, I don't like vampires, and I hate the character of Strahd just because I know he's supposed to be the evil bad guy. But for the fact that I still respect, I still fantasy respect the fantasy Strahd.
Mm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And they did him dirty.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
He
They did.
he deserves better.
It's
And one day we can go in and completely rebuild Strahd up and make him as an ancient vampire.
Mm-hmm. Just mix some of the lich abilities into it.
Yeah.
we got to come up with a better pun than what D&D did. We can't do a revamp.
I mean, yeah.
We need to make it Strahd with teeth.
Yes.
So that was the end of the list. I did have a couple of honorable mentions that just going to throw out there for people to look up on their own. A couple of these are from newer books, so if you don't have access on D&D Beyond, check out the other pages and it should pop up eventually. You have the Fomorian nobles. If you don't know Fomorians, they are disfigured giants. The Fomorian nobles are not disfigured and are basically bards in giant form. We have the Grim Champions, which is from the new edition, or the new book coming out. I forgot the name. They're basically a 4 horsemen knockoff. So whenever they finally release a stat block to view, definitely check that out, because they have, I think it's Pestilence, Rage, Greed. I'm like, it's basically 4 horsemen. So if you want to run that in your campaign game, that's the stat block look up. We have Typhon from Greek mythology. We have the Skittering Horror, which is an aberration which causes madness. And the ever so classic Purple Worm.
Yeah, if nothing else, if you don't look at anything else, if you never looked at the stat block for the Purple Worm, that is a cornerstone creature for D&D.
That
Mhm.
should have been
So
our
go
10.
and check that out.
That would have been a 10.
That would have been a 10.
If you would like to play Dune in your game.
I'm surprised you put Vampire Spellcaster on there and not Purple Worm.
Well, because Purple Worm has Tremor Sense. I'm like, I feel like that's all I can remember it having, though. It doesn't really do much. It's just a giant worm that everyone hates to fight, but it's a classic monster.
Yeah.
It's an experience.
Mm-hmm. The minis are fun for those.
Thank you for joining us. It's been too long, and I hope we can do it again
Oh,
here
yeah,
in the
man.
future. And we're going to rebuild Strahd. We're going to do it right.
Yeah, I'm down.
I'm evil enough to make him almost impossible.
I would like to
I wouldn't be
survive,
surprised
please.
if we saw him in your campaign later.
See, you don't understand. I don't when I create stuff, I just go what would look cool. So your approach is they might not survive. My approach is depends Depends on how I play it.
I need to send you the stat block that I made for Cerberus in my
Okay.
game. I'll send that over. I'll see if I can get it off of Roll20 and send it over. But thank you guys for coming on and joining us for
having us
this.
again.
Yeah,
Always
absolutely.
a blast.
And if you haven't heard anything from Casey and Marie and Potato Candy Network, head over to Spotify and check them out. They got a website, www.potatocandynetwork.com, where you can find their shows there as well. And thank you for listening. In the meantime, keep rolling high, and we'll see you in the next one.